And I love that you put this in today's episode. And I want every single person that watches or listens to our show to remember that no one can predict the future. Nobody. No one.
Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to Upticks with Jake and Cory. Cory, winter is in full swing in the Midwest. Are you regretting not planning that baby moon?
We planned one, but it's for next month. We should have planned it for January.
Gosh, it's cold, and
it's a vacation, not a baby moon.
Whatever. It's a baby moon. It's a baby moon. Call it what it is. Where are you going?
Florida.
Oh, there you go. Well, hopefully it's still cold here when you get down to Florida.
Yes. February, I think it will be.
I think it will be too. And, this again is bunkering down. I picked a crazy time to move. Very cold. But I'm excited. As of the recording this episode, it is pre-move. When this rolls out, I will be moved into my new Missouri home. So I'm really excited to be back on your side of the state line, Cory,
That's right.
and paying those Kansas City, Missouri taxes. So I'm excited for that.
Welcome home.
That's right. And thank all of you, and Happy New Year to everybody who's tuning in, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on your favorite podcast platform. We surely appreciate it. A thumbs up, 5-star rating, like, share our content. We're recording Upticks to enhance financial literacy. And ultimately, we want to help our clients understand their financial plans, because it's all about them and their plan. And so that's why we're doing Upticks today, Cory. And I was excited, our episode where we did the 2024 market outlook, that was almost 500 downloads on YouTube. So that's real exciting. So obviously people from all over the country are looking at our stuff, and we really appreciate that. And hopefully they're seeing some value out of it. So without further ado, Cory, speaking of interactions with our audience, we did have a subscriber send in a comment. So Cory, why don't you kick us off?
All right, Jake. The comment from our listener was that they were listening to our podcast and you talked about passwords and how difficult it is to keep track. Password management has been a thorn in their side since 1977. However, there's hope. They said, I have not and will not use a third-party password manager because with Apple, you have one built in. It's keychain and it's amazing. I now have a unique 22-digit password for every website and I don't have to remember them. Now, when I sign on to any website, when they prompt for username/password, Apple will ask to use the one it knows about. What do you think about that?
Very cool, Cory. And again, obviously, we are not endorsing Apple or any third party. This came from our listener. But my question to you is, do you use Apple Keychain?
I do.
Okay. And what is your experience?
It's been great for the same reasons that he's highlighted here.
Is this the thing when it uses my Face ID that goes in? Is that Apple Keychain, or is there something I have to go actually use?
It's something that you would set up in your iCloud, but you very well may already have it set up on your phone at least.
I don't know. I don't know if I use it. Now, I did go research this. And first off, thank you to the individual that sent this in. And, it's important because you have to be careful writing down your passwords. And then if you lose that piece of paper or that notebook, or, using third-party apps because of cybersecurity and hacking, I would think Apple is probably a pretty safe place. But again, we're not endorsing them to do that. I did go research this. What I thought was interesting, because I don't use an Apple computer, but I think, Cory, and again, I could be wrong here, but my quick research, it looks like even if you use a PC, you can use this keychain on your PC, believe it or not. So that's pretty cool that Apple did that. So anyways, what were you going to say? Were you going to say something?
No.
So again, thank you for our listener for tuning in for that tidbit of advice or recommendation. So the key here is, though, again, keep your passwords safe, keep them secure, keep them unique, and keep them organized. Because nobody, do you love having to do that password reset, Cory? I don't like doing it.
I don't.
So
I don't. You
I
know,
d-
it's interesting that we got this suggestion, Jake, because I'll share this real quick. I have been going to physical therapy for my ankle that I injured playing paddle in December. My physical therapist I've been talking to, she actually subscribed to the show and told me that she listened to the episode of Upticks. And the first thing she commented to me about was the passwords and how difficult it is to keep track of them all
right, right.
and not make them
Well,
all the
good.
same.
So Keychain, check it out. Again, I don't
Check it
know.
out.
I can't endorse it. I might be using it, Corey. I don't even know. So,
Right. That's right.
but fair enough. All right, let's dive into our headlines. Corey, kick us off. Play
Charge.
ball.
All
That's
right.
play ball, or is that
Play
charge?
ball. That's right. Okay. Let's
Yeah,
play ball.
I'm doing that for you because you're a baseball guy.
I appreciate you doing that. Ready for spring now. So, Jake, noticing what you spend money on that's actually an investment. What have you got here?
Actually, yeah, this is a little unique, Corey. This was from a podcast I actually listened to,
Okay.
and I thought it was very, very enlightening. And so the premise here, or my takeaway, is that financial planning, according to this podcast, is about aligning your capital with your goals, right? But I think most people think capital is just your money. And money certainly is a piece of your capital, but their argument on this podcast is that capital is also your time and your attention and your money.
Mm.
So what they were getting at, Corey, on the show is that what's the value in your spending of your time, money, or attention? So you can go through a spending practice to see what you are receiving in return for your capital, and then weigh if it aligns with your financial plan. Because a lot of people talk about time, right? Because time is finite, right? We only have so much of it. You can't really create it. So, a quick example of this, and I think one of the hosts on the show used the same one that I use, is that he doesn't mow his yard,
Hmm.
right? And so he understands that he is paying something for a service that he probably could figure out on his own and do on his own. But there's the cost of the lawnmower. There's the cost of actually mowing your lawn and sweeping up the yard clippings and making sure everything looks proper and clean and taking care of all that. And his point was that, I'd rather spend that time doing something else that I am good at or that I actually enjoy doing. And so he is, again, trading his capital, or he's actually aligning his capital, not just money, his time, doing something that he finds more productive. Even if his time isn't necessarily making money, maybe his time is better spent with his wife or his children or whatever, right? And not necessarily making money. So I thought that was cool. I really liked it. So again, when you're looking at your financial plan, and we do this at Falcon Wealth Advisors, we want to talk about, yes, of course, we're going to talk about your money. But we also want to talk about, where are you spending your time and where are you spending your attention? And let's make sure all three of those go into this capital equation as it relates to your financial plan. Pretty cool stuff, isn't it, Corey?
That's pretty good. I like it.
Good. You got anything else to add to that?
No, so the real quick though, Jake, is the idea that if someone is investing, if somebody is spending money on a service where someone's taking care of their lawn, that those dollars spent on that service is an investment in itself because it's saving capital elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Good point, Corey. So that is not actually spending money, it's investing it, is what they would argue. They're
Okay.
investing money in yard care so that they can leverage their time to go do something else, more pleasurable or more productive. So again, that to them would not be a cost on their balance or their budget. It's an investment. It's pretty interesting. And the key, though, you can't just sit here and say everything's an investment. Though.
Right.
When I go
That's the
buy a
first thing I thought
cheeseburger,
of.
that's an investment in my happiness, Corey. No, right? You've got to be real with
Right.
yourself, and that's why you go through this spending exercise. And if anyone watching or listening to this wants to learn more about that, our financial planners can actually take a deep dive, and they're calling it a financial organization meeting, and they can go through this exercise with you and track, where's your money going every month, and is that true capital, and is it helping you with your money, time, or attention? And if not, maybe we can cut it, right? Maybe it's not an investment. That's maybe when you're wasting money. So I thought that was good.
And I think that financial organization meeting that our financial planning group has really worked to structure and build out is going to be very impactful for a lot of people, me included. I plan on going through it.
Right. And it's new for 24 for us. So again, we've already do the financial planning, retirement planning, we do tax planning, and we decided to layer on another meeting for clients that want to take us up on it, where we will go very deep into your finances and look at all that stuff and make sure that everything's lined up. Very good. All right, Corey, let's go on to the next one. So everything Wall Street got wrong in 2023. What are we talking about here, Cory?
Well, everything Wall Street got wrong, but this was a good reminder, Jake, on predicting the future. This is an article from Bloomberg that highlighted at the end of 2022, sell US stocks, buy United States treasuries, buy Chinese stocks were very much the consensus view on Wall Street, and the consensus was dead wrong in 2023. There was one analyst at Morgan Stanley that was highlighted in this article that stated in January of 2023. So let's just take a moment. We'll go back 1 year. Despite the already downbeat consensus that people were too optimistic, and he predicted a 20% drop in the S&P 500. And in February of 2023, Jake, the same analyst warned clients the market's risk-reward dynamic was as poor as it had been any time since the bear market started at the beginning of 2022. And when the market was up nearly 10% in May last year, he told investors not to be duped. And below this, we've included what we can flash up on the screen here is a chart from this article that showed the S&P 500, the cap-weighted index, how much it outperformed expectations. And that dotted line that you see, Jake, that average year-end forecasts was the average forecasts across a number of analysts. And what I really took away from this article was we can't predict the future. When we hear someone, an institution, state what's going to happen in the future, it does not mean that is the way that things will play out. And in fact, this is highlighting that in a year like 2023, if you were to follow that advice, it would have been absolutely the wrong thing to do.
Thank you for sharing, Cory. And again, let's be clear. We're not picking on Morgan Stanley or anybody, because the reality is there are thousands of analysts out there doing this right now. In fact, I'm glad you included this in today's episode, because I just finished listening to another podcast of a very well-respected advisor in our industry. I respect him. I think he's a great guy, and I think he's very smart. And he went over what he got right and what he got wrong in 2023, right? Where he graded himself A's, F's,
Sure.
whatever. What I found interesting is then he proceeded to say what he expected in 2024. And it's like, why can't you see all of the energy that you're doing is pointless? Now, maybe he's just trying to have a comment or something to share with clients. But, and again, we don't brush it under the rug so much to say, we don't know, so we're not even going to talk about it. Like, but we also aren't so, and again, I'm not saying he's this way, but we aren't so bold or egotistical to claim that we know that we can make a market call. I mean, it's so stupid that thousands of people do it. And you know why, Cory? Because it sells. Just like they always say, sex sells. So do people predicting the future. And I love that you put this in today's episode. And I want every single person that watches or listens to our show to remember that no one can predict the future. Nobody. No one.
Yes. So that reminds me, I just want to share this real quick, Jake. That Wilbur Wright, one of the Wright brothers, I posted this on social media recently.
I saw that.
Said that 2 years before they were flying planes, before they got the planes up in the air, that he told his brother it will be at least 50 years before we are flying airplanes up in the air. And 2 years later, they were doing it. And he stated that he was so wrong in his forward-looking prediction that he concluded that he was going to stop trying to guess what's going to happen altogether because of how wrong he was. And this was the person that put the plane in the air.
Good for him. What's next?
All right, Jake, what the 2024 tax brackets mean for your money.
Right. This is a guide to understanding your federal income tax. You left out the subtitle.
I missed the second line. Thank
you.
So
I don't want to spend a lot of money, or not a lot of money. I don't want to spend a lot of time on taxes today because we spent a lot of that on the last episode. I do hear this still a little often when I meet with clients. So I just want to clear up some of the confusion. And I want to explain quickly how tax brackets work. So a single person with $140,000 in taxable income this year in 2024 would be in the 24% tax bracket. But this doesn't mean all of their income is taxed at that rate. Their effective tax rate would be much lower than that top rate, the 24%. This is because the first slice of your taxable income is taxed at only 10%, whether you're an entry-level clerk or you're a CEO. The next slice gets taxed at 12% and so on. So it's a gradual, it's a ladder, right?
Progressive.
Progressive, there you go. And the only the portion of the individual's taxable income from $100,526 to $191,950 would be taxed at the 24% rate. So the range is 10 to 37%, Cory. And too often I hear, not too often, but I have heard this a lot, that clients never want to get pushed to a higher bracket. But they have to realize if they get pushed to a higher bracket, it's only those dollars, literally the dollars that are pushing them over to the higher bracket, that they're truly taxed at a higher rate. It's not the whole kit and caboodle. So I don't want people to be overly sensitive to their tax bracket. It is something to pay attention to and be conscious of. And certainly if you're on Medicare, that's a whole nother issue to be aware of on Medicare, yes. But when we're talking about just raw tax brackets, don't get caught up in going into the next bracket. It's not that big of a deal. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's good that you've highlighted this, because if somebody misunderstands this, they may miss opportunities in their financial plan and their long-term planning. And that's why it's really important to understand.
Right. Good. Good. Thank you, Cory. All right. On to the next one here. Weekly economic summary with December jobs data.
All right. This is timely here, Jake.
More charts, Cory?
More charts. How about that?
You're slipping in two. I thought we agreed one. Anyways, we'll let you have two this time. Go ahead.
We talked about taxes so much last week. I needed to switch it up a bit this week. So the weekly economic summary, this is from Strategic Research Partners, which is an institutional research firm that we have access to. And they highlighted in their weekly economic summary, basically the December jobs data that was just released. And the U.S. payrolls rose 216,000 jobs month over month in December of 2023, which beat expectations. I thought it was interesting, though, they highlighted and really drilled down a bit further here. And this is what I wanted to run by you, Jake, and see what your thoughts were. One, the unemployment rate held at 3.7%, but underemployment rose to 7.1%. But this is where I thought it was interesting. Temporary employment fell month over month in December. The work week declined, think number of hours. Full-time jobs fell. Multiple job holders increased. And joblessness for those with less than a high school diploma is continuing to trend higher. So they really highlighted here that these are small cracks, not large cracks in the U.S. employment situation, but really weekly jobless claims, which is how many people are looking for a job that don't have one currently and how long those claims continue, and corporate credit spreads, which is basically the difference between an interest rate that a corporation will pay on its debt as opposed to the United States Treasury, are likely the key U.S. soft landing gauges that we hear the Federal Reserve talk so much about and the media talk so much about. And right now, they're very much indicating so far so good. And that's what the chart here is reflecting as well. We have jobless claims on the left and corporate credit spreads on the right.
So what do you want to hear from me?
My question for you, Jake, is if this is pointing to the employment situation and a soft landing, what do you think about that? What do you think about this whole hard landing, soft landing, no landing discussion? And what metrics are really the most important to evaluate that?
Yeah, I've been actually thinking a lot about this lately, about macro economics and macro data. I'm not subscribing to it as much as I was before. I think it's important to know what's going on, but I don't think it really boils down, directly impacts the investor as much as people think. So my point is, I think it's regional. So, one community or geographical location could be experiencing a completely different type of landing when they're talking about recession or cooling. And so I don't buy into it too much. I think Strategic they're a good shop, don't get me wrong, but I think they're searching a little bit here to find some sort of correlation. I think that unemployment, the fact that it's still very low on a broad level, is a great sign that what the Fed did worked, because they lowered inflation from 9% to under 4%. And they did all this without spiking unemployment. So in my opinion, Cory, we've already had a soft landing. Even if we do go into recession or something happens, I mean, the Fed already did what they needed to do. And so I wouldn't blame the Fed now, is my point, if the economy got worse. I think we're past that, and that's all been filtered in. So I appreciate you sharing the information. I think it's impossible to truly know what factor makes the most sense. That's why there's so much of it out there and people look at it. But I think it ultimately is going to boil down to your unique situation and your financial plan as to hard landing versus soft landing, in my opinion.
All right. Very good. Let's move on. 7 reasons do-it-yourself investors should consider getting a financial advisor in 2024.
All right. Of course, I loved this one, Corey. It's a little self-serving. The article was talking about 7 ways advisors help investors in their 40s and 50s.
Mm,
So it was primarily for people, kind of in that age demographic or older. Number one, though, was assess where you are. They commented that many people don't really even understand that how they're invested in their 401k. And as I go through the list here, Corey, real quick question for you. How many times have you seen it where a new client will come in and say, I'm very risk adverse, Corey. I'm very safe. I'm very secure. I don't like to lose money. But then their 401k is 100% invested in stocks.
yes. In fact, I have a client that I started working with in 2014 or 2015 who reminds me of this to this day, that we had that conversation when we very first met, that those two things weren't aligned.
Yeah. So good. Hiring a wealth advisor can help assess actually how are you invested and how are you aligned. Consider other investing options. That's another good one. A lot of advisors, obviously we being one of those, have a variety of different investment approaches and ways. So there may be some things that you haven't thought of as an individual that we can help provide you. One of the big ones, Corey, in the last couple of years were I bonds. You and I did a huge educational series around I bonds, explaining what they were to our clients. Where I think if you're doing it yourself and not really up to date on what's going on, you might have missed it. Another good one, Corey, I think is funny, but also serious, is ironing out spousal conflict overspending. It's good. You and I can be the middleman. We can be the mediator.
That's right.
Money is very emotional for a lot of people, and it helps to have a third party, a professional involved in helping you navigate some of these tough, high intense, discussions. Prepare for possible negative events. That was kind of making sure your insurance, right? We don't ever want people to be overinsured, but we also don't want them to be underinsured. Help you work through competing priorities. So that's another good one. Like, you don't want to have to move back in with your kids. So you might be like, well, my kids need money for a down payment for a house, or I'm going to go buy my kid a car. We can help you show the impact of that having to your ultimate financial plan. And so we understand that there's a lot of things that you may want to pay for or juggle, but we can help prioritize those through a financial plan to help you. Identify additional ways to save. We've talked a lot about this on Upticks: health savings accounts, Roth IRAs, 401ks, after-tax savings, all those things that maybe the individual wouldn't know. And then just generating a positive outlook. I think if you're doing this on your own, Corey, and you're only watching, CNBC or the news, they tend to paint a far more negative picture just because, again, that gets people's attention. So we can create a positive outlook, and we can actually show you a 30, 40-year time horizon of what your financial plan, what trajectory your plan's running at, to hopefully give you a little bit of perspective and not make things feel so gloomy when everything around you is cloudy. I thought this was a good one. You have any thoughts on this?
The one thought that's really jumping out at me when you have gone through that list and talked about the benefits that can be involved in hiring an advisor is that ultimately, going through this, all of those benefits are also aligned with making it easier, I think, for people to tune out some of the doom and gloom that is so relevant and pertinent everywhere all the time. Because if somebody has a plan, they know the direction that they're going, they know the steps that they need to take, they're checking in on it periodically, you can move forward doing what's important, and you can tune out some of the nonsense that might be difficult to do if you don't have a plan. If you don't know what the future is going to look like and what you're aiming for, you could very easily get caught up in all of the doom and gloom that is seemingly everywhere.
You're right. You're exactly right. All right, good. Let's go on to the next one here. Here's what it's like to retire on almost nothing but Social Security. Corey, I didn't like this article. You brought it in here. Let's hear what you got to say about it.
All right. So the Wall Street Journal did a series where they talked about here's what it looks like to retire with $5 million, with $1 million, number of different levels. And the last one that they did was this one for folks that have retired with almost exclusively Social Security. What jumped out at me, and the reason I wanted to include this today, Jake, is that roughly, and this is really for everybody who's watching and listening, because I get a lot of questions about this. Social Security, of course, we do all the time. Roughly 1 in 7 Social Security recipients, 65 and older, rely on Social Security benefits for nearly all of their income, according to the AARP analysis. And the average monthly Social Security check is about $1,900. So 1 in 7 people, 65 and older, are relying upon it almost exclusively. And they highlighted a few people in their stories, but what I wanted to share from those was that one person who was highlighted was unprepared for sudden retirement caused by his health because he never planned to stop working, which actually takes me back to what you just shared, Jake, in that article about, planning for potentially negative events. This is somebody who never planned to stop working and didn't align their finances. They just assumed they'd be able to work forever, and they weren't. And that is what has resulted in this retirement for them. Another was forced to take disability because of health. And a third said that she didn't know how much boosting earnings during her working years would raise Social Security benefits in retirement. And she had to take a crash course in managing her finances after her husband that handled them passed away unexpectedly. So the bottom line, my takeaway from all of this for the people watching and listening is: 1, take care of your physical health. 2, financial literacy is more important than ever. Don't choose to ignore it. And embracing budgeting, interestingly, has allowed these people with little money to live on to still have fulfilling retirements and fulfilling lives. And my takeaway was, imagine the power of budgeting and embracing that for somebody that does have resources, and what retirement could look like if these folks that are forced into this situation can still be fulfilled. Imagine if you're not forced into this situation, but you plan accordingly anyhow, how fruitful retirement could be.
Yeah, good. And I'm glad you included it. And you're right. There were a lot of rays and sunshine in this article. And again, I appreciate you sharing it. And you have to embrace it, that it's a lot, it's a lot easier when you're working and you can just work more hours or whatever and make more money.
Yep.
When you're retired, you can't resist it. You have to understand that, if you are not willing to go back to work, or you can't, which is awful for someone that
Right.
wants to, you can't go back to work, or you're not willing to, then you're going to have to make some other behavior modifications. And one of them may be tracking your spending. And you may just need to track it for a few months. That way you know where your dollars are going, but at least you're doing something. Good, Cory. That's good. It's a good idea that you included in here.
Thank you.
All right. We have time for one more. Let's go one more here.
All right, Jake. Americans' required retirement income has never been higher. I like the juxtaposition of these two. Retirement income has never been higher. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so this is the opposite side. And the key takeaway here is that what the article is really talking about is that individuals that are forced to take required minimum distributions from their IRAs has never been higher. And it makes sense because more of the baby boomers are getting older. So they're reaching required minimum distribution age, which is age 73 or 74 based on when you're 75, 73 or 75 based on when you were born. Okay. And their accounts are up because the market's been up. So they have more money, they're getting older, and that's why they're at all-time highs. And so, again, the market had another great year. And like I said, people are getting older, and that's how the required minimum distributions are calculated. But there are ways to reduce those required minimum distributions, Cory. And one includes qualified charitable distributions. So that would be giving some of your IRA money directly to a 501c3 charity. You may be exempt, potentially if you're still working, for example, or doing Roth conversions leading up to your required minimum distributions, or frankly, if you're still having to do them. So my key takeaway here, or call to action, this is a good time for that, is if you don't like your required minimum distribution, or you know someone who complains about their required minimum distribution, then they should set a meeting with us at Falcon Wealth Advisors, because we can go over strategies to help reduce that required minimum distribution and hopefully lessen some of that potential or future or current tax burden.
Very good.
Cory, what's your experience on this?
Yes, the qualified charitable donations are a great way for people to take advantage of just this. And I have a countless number of clients that do take advantage of this and really plan to use those years as the years where they may be increasing their charitable intent as part of their goal and their financial plan, because it makes a lot of sense from a tax perspective. And ultimately, if they're in the position to have the resources to be able to do it, that's great. But this is what I love about this: is it doesn't matter if you take the standard deduction or if you itemize, you can take advantage of this either way.
Right. And to qualify for those charitable distributions, you have to be at least 70 and a half. So you don't even necessarily need to be 73 or 75. Right. You could still do it. So again, certainly good one, Cory. I think I agree. I have a lot of my clients that do that as well. So it's a good one to take advantage of. If you're not doing it and you are giving it to a charity, you really should talk to us, because we can help you plan accordingly. So perfect. Well, Cory, with that, that's all the time we have today for the show. Do you have any key takeaways just in general before we wrap up?
I like your call to action about the RMDs, Jake, and also to remind our audience to embrace budgeting. It doesn't have to be a bad word, and it can ultimately be it can be powerful, and it can help you align your spending with your values, which is crucial, and it can ultimately lead to a more fulfilling retirement.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Cory. And thank you all for tuning in to Upticks. We hope you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.